Well, Mother's Day is just a few days away, so we decided to sit down with one mother who's put her experience through motherhood on paper to help other moms out. We are joined with Anne Von de Water. You are the author of Mommy Memoirs, and Anne, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, it's not Mother's Day yet, but we'll give you a early Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Now, I have to say, reading through your book and looking at all the chapters named, you put a lot of very funny but very personal information out there on paper forever. So what made you take this leap from maybe sharing these stories around the dinner table to actually publishing them?
Well, there were several reasons. I've always wanted to write, but I was inspired because my mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at age 56. So I wanted to get my stories on paper so that I could leave a legacy for my sons, and that was kind of the motivating factor.
And, you know, I mentioned all of the chapter names. I'm going to grab the book and read some of them because, you know, everyone has those stories that they always laugh about that maybe in the heat of the moment seemed very serious, but after you kind of had a moment to walk away, they are very funny. I mean, you have things called, you know, look at the mess you made. He is so a newborn, bawling with the baby. And so it's a kind of a great mix of heartwarming things, but always funny things. So where do you find the inspiration to have the ability to translate these on paper?
I think a big part of it was I just felt that one of the things that helped me to thrive versus just surviving motherhood was keeping a sense of humor. It's a big part of being a mom. And so a lot of these stories, I mean, they are all real life stories. And I just was able to download them from my brain, and chapter titles are always a great way to hook people. And yeah, a lot of them are very, very funny. There are some that are heartwarming. I do talk about my mom and her early onset Alzheimer's in one of the chapters, but most of them are pretty humorous and very relatable for moms who have been there and done that, and they'll read them and say, "Oh yeah, I remember when."
It's super relatable for people that, you know, are sort of taking these stories and saying, "My mom has done something very similar to that."
Oh yes.
So, you know, there are so many chapters we could talk about, but do you have a specific passage or chapter that sticks out in your mind that is maybe one of your more favorite ones?
Well, the very beginning is called "I Want to Be the Perfect Mom," and we have to realize none of us are going to be perfect. That is a done deal. So the conclusion is called "Nobody's Perfect." And so I did learn something as I raised our boys. But the first chapter is called "My OBGYN Goes to My Church." And I bumped into him in the hallway and wondered if he recognized me. The final chapter is called "Uterusless in Buffalo," which talks about a new stage and having a hysterectomy. So it's interesting being interviewed by a young man versus another woman who can relate. But so many of my chapters are relatable. There's one called "I Know What You Did," another one called "Letting Down in Public." There are another one called "Advice from the Bros, Never Drive with Mom," which talks about, you know, this thing.
And I can imagine that, you know, this is a great book for new mothers to get, that kind of shows that you don't have to be the perfect mother to be the perfect mother.
Exactly. And I think, you know, there's so much pressure on moms nowadays. There always has been, but to just really have their act all together and you know, have this image of really knowing what they're doing. And really, we all go in pretty naively about what it's going to take to get through motherhood and not just survive, but to thrive. And so that's the reason I wrote the book, really, is to just kind of give moms a glimpse into my real life stories, to give them encouragement to say, you're not alone on this journey, and there are others just ahead of you on the path who have been there and done that and are willing to share their stories and be really honest about it.
All right, I could talk to you about your book all day, but I'm getting the rap signal in my ear. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully this book helps people out there sort of, you know, relate and appreciate their mothers.
And I will gladly send one home to yours.
All right, well, thank you so much.